So again, good morning. I'm Pierre-Vincent, and yeah, filling in for Daryl this morning. So I know Daryl has been teaching on the precepts lately, so I'll be sharing some thoughts about that a bit later. And I'll start the way that she's starting lately with the chant, so chanting the refuges and precepts. So feel free to tag along if you want to chant, keeping your mic off. But otherwise, you can also just listen. And so I'll be chanting the refuges and precepts, and then we'll start with the meditation. So you can already, choose a posture in which you feel stable and comfortable. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Tadiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Tadiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Tadiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikappadam samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikappadam samadhiyami. Kamisu michashara veramani sikappadam samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikappadam samadhiyami. Sura meraya majapamadatana veramani sikappadam samadhiyami. Idam me silam Nagyaphala jnanasapa chayotu. So taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, inviting or bringing to mind the 5 precepts, of refraining from taking life, from taking what's not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, from taking intoxicants. Keeping the eyes open or closed as we gather the attention, collect the mind. Lending in this very moment, here and now. Sitting, knowing that we're sitting, perhaps through just feeling body sensations, pressure under the feet or under the sitting bones, the touch of the body with the earth, the ground, the support underneath us. Perhaps through feeling the touch of the clothes on the skin, or the temperature, perhaps feeling pressure, heaviness, lightness, tingling, throbbing, whatever sensation is present in the body. Perhaps through the breath, breathing, knowing that we're breathing. So we gather the attention, we collect the mind, we land back in this very moment. we try to sustain the attention. This in breath, this out breath. And, and we start again, moment after moment. Whenever we get distracted, whenever we notice we got hooked or caught into an habitual pattern of the mind, thinking about the past or the future, and we can pause, we can soften, relax, and reopen to this moment. Feeling the body sitting, feeling the body breathing, gathering, collecting the mind, and sustaining the attention, attuning to whatever is going to emerge. And as we come to an end, this practice, the invitation is to bring to mind, bring to the heart a sense of appreciation or gratitude with respect to all of the conditions of happiness that are already present. So it might be simple things like, having a chair to sit on, having a roof above our heads, or electricity to heat our houses, having food in the fridge, or the heart that beats, whatever it is that comes to mind, that is part of the condition of happiness that's already present. May this practice contribute to my well being and the well being, happiness, liberation of all beings. Thanks, everyone. Um, so, I wanted to share a little bit about the precepts, and I wanted to use the way that they're being worded and practiced at Plum Village. And so these are, teachings from Thich Nhat Hanh, and they call them the 5 mindfulness trainings, and they're really just another way to sort of it's just another way that the 5 precepts are formulated or good, I guess. And they're really at the root of the practice. And the way that they're seen and understood, It's really as a concrete mindfulness practice in our daily lives. So, of course, there are a framework. These teachings or these trainings are offering guidance. And I'm sure that Daryl mentioned that as well, but they're not to be taken as rules to apply, right? The way that I like to approach them is really an invitation to cultivate compassion and understanding, a way to bring curiosity in order to deepen comprehension, right? And the more that I've trained in these mindfulness trainings, the more I see that it just feels like they bring us closer to, I want to say, our Buddha nature, in the sense of, ahimsa or nonviolence in our thinking, in our, speech, actions. So yeah, I really like the wording, the way that they're worded at Plum Village. It seems like they emphasize mindfulness as a foundation in all of the different trainings, or all of the 5 precepts. They start by this acknowledgement of awareness, being aware of a certain reality that we're involved in. So being aware of that reality that we're in, then there's that invitation to reflect and to practice and develop and refine what I want to call the right response, right? Or a response that's based on understanding our interconnection. Thich Nhat Hanh talks a lot about that aspect of interbeing, the way that we're all related and connected. And the response is based also, so from that understanding, there's that response that aims at diminishing dukkha or suffering, with caring and with love. And so we see, right, that it's just another way to practice the Eightfold Path. All of the aspects of the Eightfold Paths are present in these trainings. Of course, with mindfulness being there, right effort being of great support. And so I was reading this morning as I was preparing for this, and Thich Nhat Hanh says, I wrote it down, so I'm going to read for you. He says, to practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of interbeing, or right view, which can remove all suffering. So it's quite a deep statement. Nevertheless, it's a training, so we recognize, we acknowledge, we know that it's a practice, and so we don't want to be too hard on ourselves, whenever we notice some shortcomings. But it's just it's just another way that we can use that feedback in order to deepen understanding and response. And so I'm just going to, quickly go through these 5 steps, or the 5 mindfulness trainings as they're called. And the first one is reverence for life. And so I'm gonna read. The way that they're worded, every training is like a whole paragraph, and it has a lot of content. So I'm just gonna. I took some bits and parts out of the 5 of them to share with you, and you can easily find them online if you Google, 5 mindfulness trainings. Plum Village, you'll find them easily. But I'll just share bits and parts and maybe some thoughts that arise from reading them. So the first one is reverence for life. And I like the wording. It always starts, as I mentioned, it always starts with aware of the suffering. And then there's a part in which it says, I am committed. So there's that aspect of, again, mindfulness being the foundation of understanding. And then how do we want to show up, knowing that. So reverence for life, aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. And so reading that, it made me think of when I went to Plum Village for a retreat. It was very interesting because there were families, there were kids, there were children all over the place, and so it was quite dynamic. And the kids would train them with what they called the 2 promises, and they go like that. I mean, it was a chant, so I think I'm just gonna go with the melody as I share them with you because it comes to mind with the melody. But it would go like, I vow to develop understanding in order to live peacefully with people, animals, plants, and minerals. That's the first one. And the second promise is, I vow to develop my compassion in order to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. Somehow it really touched me, just, the simplicity and the depth of these 2 promises that the kids would just, learn and sing. And it's, and it has, that aspect of understanding and that aspect of compassion that we often, we sometimes call the 2 wings of that, of the bird, of the practice. So having understanding that's also balanced with compassion and with this aspect of interbeing. So realizing that we're part of this ecosystem, we're not separate from it, and so we can soften, perhaps as we deepen into this practice and these aspects of interbeing, we can soften dualistic or discriminative views. So this whole training is really about that. Reverence for life. And the second one is true happiness. I just like that, we often, when we talk about the second precept, it's kind of refraining from taking what's not given. So I kind of like that it's worded true happiness at Plum Village. And so it goes like this: aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. So that was sort of the invitation at the end of the practice, to start noticing all of these conditions to be happy that are already present in our lives, and to invite this practice of generosity. I like that they mention, in our thinking, speaking, and acting. So in all the different aspects of our lives, we can practice generosity. And the way that it's worded, there's also that aspect of right livelihood. So again, it's always sort of incorporating that aspect of interbeing, And so as we deepen in this sense that there's this interconnection, we see that our actions have consequences, and vice versa. Actions of others are going to have repercussions also. And so, and there's the inclusion in this, in the way that it's worded, to stop contributing to climate change. So I find it very interesting that it's in this particular training, as a way to, as we become deeply touched by this dynamic web of interbeing. I know that for myself, I've seen that the response has been to want to show up with caring. I want to care for myself, and I want to care for others, and I want to care for this world. And so the third one is true love. So it goes like this: aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, the four basic elements of true love. So you may have recognized the four Brahma Viharas in this: loving kindness, compassion, joy, inclusiveness. I like that the way Thich Nhat Hanh talks about equanimity. He often uses the word non-discrimination, this aspect of inclusion, inclusiveness. And the fourth one is loving speech and deep listening. So, aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. This has been, at least for me lately, this has been a big part of my practice to cultivate, or try to cultivate, this loving speech and deep listening. And again, it's this invitation to notice as thoughts arise, it's again in all the dimensions of thinking and speaking and actions. There's a lot I find in this training, or in this practice, that's also about noticing habitual patterns and conditioning. and to refrain from going there. In our conversations, uh, in our interactions, so easy not to slip away from right speech. and and again, it's not that we're hard on ourselves, whenever we notice some shortcomings. It's just, can we attune and really connect to the sensation so that we can notice the direct effect of unmindful speech or unmindful listening. And as we do that, we might, at least in my experience, this has been the process. It's not that this becomes a rules. Yes, there's the precept, there's the framework, as we've mentioned. But then on a daily basis, as we're speaking, as we're listening, if we can remember to bring mindfulness and to feel, the echo of our thoughts or our speech, then there's this choice, to go there or to not go there, depending on what we notice is the repercussion of that within ourselves or for others. And then the last one is nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. Not to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. So that idea of intoxicants is really quite large in this training, in this understanding of how we nourish not only our body but our mind. And so, yeah, I just wanted to offer these 5 mindfulness trainings as I feel, yeah, they're a practice that can be incorporated in our daily life, just by bringing mindfulness into every area of life. So that's the invitation. Yeah, that's all I had to share. So, looking at the time, I think we could end the live streaming on YouTube. And so, thanks for joining. And